The little girl tugged at her father's sleeve and whispered, "Daddy." "She's not moving." At first, Daniel thought she meant a stray animal. The snow was falling hard that night, blurring the empty road and swallowing all sound. His old pickup truck idled behind them, its headlights cutting through the storm. He followed his daughter's finger toward the shape lying near the guardrail, and then he saw the badge. Blood stained the snow beneath a woman in a police uniform, her breath shallow, her body barely conscious. One hand clutched her side. The other trembled, as if she was holding on to life by a single thread. Daniel's heart slammed against his ribs. He was just a single dad driving home from a late shift, counting overtime hours in his head, worrying about rent, wondering how he'd stretch groceries through the week. He wasn't supposed to be here. But fate had other plans, and what happened next would shake an entire police force and change his life forever. If you're watching this, stay with me, B. 'Cause this story doesn't unfold the way you expect, and somewhere in it, you might just recognize a piece of your own heart. Daniel knelt beside her, shrugging off his heavy coat and pressing it against the wound. His hands shook, but his voice stayed calm, the way it had learned to be after years of raising a child alone. "Hey," he said softly. "You're not alone. I'm here." The officer's eyes fluttered open. She tried to speak, but winced in pain. "Stay still," Daniel said. "Help's coming." He reached for his phone and froze. No signal. The storm had knocked out the towers. Behind him, his daughter Lily hugged herself, teeth chattering, her eyes wide but brave. She was only 8, but she'd learned early how to be strong. Her mother had died years ago, and Daniel had become everything Dad-Mom, protector and comforter. "Daddy, is she going to die?" Lily asked quietly. Daniel swallowed hard. "No," he said, even though he didn't know if it was true. "Not tonight." The officer's fingers tightened around his sleeve. Her voice came out in a whisper. "Please, don't leave." "I won't," Daniel said instantly. "I promise." He lifted her carefully and carried her to the truck, laying her across the back seat. He turned the heater on full blast, wrapped her in blankets, and held pressure on the wound as the minutes crawled by. Time stretched on, painfully slow. Snow piled up against the windows. The officer drifted in and out of consciousness, murmuring fragments of words, names, apologies, something about a child. At one point, she looked at Lily and forced a weak smile. "You're very brave." Lily stepped closer, her voice soft. "My daddy saves people," she said. The officer's eyes filled with tears. Daniel didn't realize it then, but that moment those simple words were already changing everything. Nearly 40 minutes later, distant sirens finally cut through the storm. Daniel felt his knees nearly give out with relief. Police vehicles and an ambulance screeched to a stop, their lights flashing red and blue against the white night. Officers rushed forward, weapons lowered, then froze when they saw Daniel, hands bloody, coat soaked, holding their fellow officer together with sheer will. "What happened?" Someone shouted. "I found her," Daniel said hoarsely. "She was bleeding." "I stayed." They worked fast, lifting her onto a stretcher, an oxygen mask already in place. One of the officers looked at Daniel's hands, then at Lily, then back at him. "You saved her life," the officer said quietly. Daniel just shook his head. I didn't leave." At the hospital, Daniel and Lily waited in a cold hallway, unsure if they were even supposed to be there. Hours passed. Dawn crept in through the windows. Finally, a senior officer approached them. The woman Daniel had saved was alive. The surgery had worked. She would recover. And then the officer said something Daniel wasn't prepared for. "She's a detective. One of our best. She was ambushed during an undercover operation." Daniel felt the true weight of it all settle in. He had unknowingly stepped into the middle of something far bigger than himself. Weeks passed. Life went back to its usual rhythm, or so Daniel thought, until one afternoon, his doorbell rang. Outside stood a line of police officers in full uniform. At the center was the detective now standing, pale but alive. She took off her hat. "I'm Detective Maria Reyes," she said, "and I'm alive because you refused to walk away." Daniel didn't know what to say. She continued, her voice steady but emotional. You didn't just save me. You saved my son from growing up without his mother. She knelt in front of Lily. And you kept your daddy strong when he needed it most. Tears filled Lily's eyes. The officers behind Maria stepped forward one by one, saluting Daniel. News of what happened spread fast. The story of the single dad who saved a dying cop in a blizzard traveled through the department. Tente City, then far beyond. But what shocked everyone wasn't just what Daniel did that night. It was what the police force did next. They raised money quietly, no cameras, no press at first, enough to pay off all of Daniel's debts, enough to secure a college fund for Lily. And Detective Reyes made sure something else happened. Daniel was offered a job with the department not as a cop, but as a civilian emergency response coordinator, a role built around what he'd already proven he had. Calm under pressure, compassion, and true courage. On his first day, Daniel stood in the station lobby, Lily at his side, holding his hand. "Daddy," she whispered, smiling up at him, "you really do save people." Daniel looked around at the officers, the badges, the place that had changed his life. "No," he said softly, "we save people." If this story touched your heart, take a moment now, hit like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from, your city, your country. These stories travel so much farther when you're a part of them, because sometimes heroes aren't the ones with the badges. Sometimes they're just parents trying to get home safely, who choose not to walk away. And that choice can change everything.